HAMSA SHEERAZ can become world champion at 160. It's all about timing, the right fight, etc., etc. But he can do it. He can do it. He has the size, 6'3". The power is developing. He's just a kid. He's only 23. And from what I've observed with tall guys, sometimes you see a tall guy in school, he looks all gangly and awkward in his uniform and his clothes, he's not confident and shit. Then you see him years later when he's buying his own clothes, his mum ain't buying him the clothes, and he's growing into his frame. It takes a little longer sometimes for a big man to grow, a tall man to grow into his tall frame. And from what I saw against River Wilson Bent, his shots are looking a little more compact. I expected this to be a tougher fight than what it was. River Wilson Bent is pretty tough. And it's a difficult one in terms of how you matchmake SHEERAZ. But yeah, a Tyler Denny fight would be good for the English title. River Wilson Bent just lost a split decision to Tyler Denny for that English title. Now, I don't think Denzel Bentley had to give up his British title to challenge old boogeyman Johnny Beck. So he's still a British champion. That's a fight Frank could produce next year. Bentley versus HAMSA SHEERAZ. A lot of people ain't sold on SHEERAZ, and I'm not saying I'm sold on him totally, but he's learning to use his size well from what I'm seeing, and that's just going to make him difficult for the right type of fight, challenging for a belt. I mean, he was giving River Wilson Bent a pasting in there, a pasting. So he can definitely hang, British title level. Matteo Signani, Italian, is the European champion. He's 43 years of age. He's lost 6 times, and that's not a handicap in itself, but he's lost to the likes of Blandamura, who Marcus Morrison has beaten, Billy Joe Saunders has beaten. And at 43, he must be right for the taking. So if Frank wanted to go the Euro route for either Denzel or HAMSA SHEERAZ, that certainly looks like it could be a winnable belt. And it's a fragmented division, man. Like, it's not the best period of middleweight boxing right now. I don't think there's no rush to pit SHEERAZ in with top 5 middleweights right now. I don't think there's no rush. Maybe back end of 2023, 2024, they can do that. He's still young. I think he has potential. I remember Zach Parker against Darren Williams, and I remember Zach Parker not winning the fight and being given a verdict. And I think Darren Williams retired because he was so disappointed and so disillusioned with boxing and the politics. It's like Dylan made a good point, and this may be more specific to the gyms of America. There's certain guys who would turn up to spar, and you're thinking, fucking hell, how come you ain't fighting as a pro? They're not fighting as a pro because of all the politics. And if you're not a draw, you have to sell your own tickets on the small hall circuit. It's not easy. It's not easy. So some guys will be working a 9 to 5, and occasionally the phone will ring. Could you come in and do some sparring? And you find out this guy can fight. But the sparring is easy. You just go in there and collect your check. Cash in hand, perhaps. And you're out. You don't have to sell tickets to be a good sparring partner. And you can make a decent living. You take out a pro license. You fight a prospect, a contender. And let's say you're training really hard, taking time out of work to train, thinking, yeah, I could do something. You're on the wrong end of a controversial decision. People might not want to fight you because of the risk reward. What do? Now, I get my fair share of picks wrong, but I got this one right. I always knew that for Zach Parker to win this fight, he's going to have to hold his feet with John Ryder. And even if he didn't bust his hand, he was yet to convince me he could do that. I wasn't convinced. And as expected, he popped that jab first round, and he won the first round, Zach Parker. Moving, switching from orthodox to southpaw. First 2 rounds was Zach Parker. But John Ryder is tough, very powerful, super middleweight. And when he started getting a full head of steam and landing a couple of shotgun jabs, he's got a very hard jab. I don't know if it was Parker's broken hand, but I saw that look of I can't keep this guy off me. That's what I saw. And John was going to keep coming forward on him all night. There was another 8 rounds of this. And boxing, that mental aspect of boxing is key. When he lost his gum shield, Zach, after shipping a big left hook, then you see him trying to shake his arms out. And, a little bit of distress signals. But here's the thing, people. In a post-fight interview, he said if he was fighting lesser opposition with the hand injury, he could have perhaps went on and pursued with the injured hand. But he wasn't prepared to do that with John Ryder. Like in the Darrell Williams fight, it was said that he had a dislocated left shoulder and he fought the majority of the fight with the injury. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. It sounded like a bit of an excuse to me. What does that say? If you had a lesser opponent, you would have tried to fight on, but with John Ryder, you wouldn't. Would it be unfair to say he quit? And John Ryder becomes interim WBO champion, and he's looking at a fight with Canelo at Wembley Stadium. Bring it on! Islington in the house, bruh. Big up John Ryder.
Yeah, I thought I was up on the cards, but started catching him with a nice right hand to the body, but obviously in that last round, I was trying to keep him off, couldn't keep him off with that, with just one hand, you know what I mean? So you can't, obviously I've done it before with one hand, but at this top level you can't do it, can you? So.
But I didn't really see him push the envelope and grimace in pain or scream because he tried to fight on with the injured arm, or hand should I say. It almost tells me that if it's going all his way, he might be prepared to deal with a little pain and inconvenience, but I just don't believe he's an Arthur Abraham. Remember when he fought Edison Miranda with half of his face falling off, his jaw was broken? Nah, I don't think he's there. I don't think he's there. I don't blame him either. I'll be more like Zach than Arthur. I'll tell you that now. Put it in context, LeRone Richards, his health is more important than me blabbing on about, I told you so. So he collapsed, apparently in his hotel room. He fell and collapsed and passed out, apparently. The details are a little vague. And his fight with Zach CHELLI on the Adam Aziz card at Ali Pali tonight, Sunday, has been cancelled. Let's hope it's not too serious, speedy recovery and all of that. Sincerely. But we've got to reflect on the events that got us here. He had a career best win against Gongora on a Matchroom card in 2021, December last year. Career best win. Now Gongora knocked off the Golovkin promoted Ali Akhmedov in December of 2020. That was actually on a Golovkin card. Now Eddie Hearn got LeRone Richards, who he'd probably admit has been punching away in relative obscurity. He's not a big draw. He's not a big name. And his style probably doesn't lead anybody to say he's an exciting fighter. LeRone told Eddie and the rest of the world, why am I going to fight this guy here when I've already beat the guy who beat him? Well, let me explain why you're going to fight him. It's because Akhmedov is an exciting fighter. It's the only loss on his record. And you're on the biggest stage you could possibly want to be on an Anthony Joshua undercard. So he left Matchroom disgruntled. Apparently he's on a fight-by-fight deal with Sky. He has to ask himself, why didn't Ben Shalom really bend his arm to sign him on a multi-fight deal? Because Ben's not stupid. He knows this guy is a hard guy to sell. So you're supposed to be fighting tonight against Zach CHELLI, a domestic level fighter, a good fighter, Zach, but he's not as good as Ali Akhmedov. So you're complaining that you're not going to fight someone who has been beaten by the guy you've beaten, but instead you fight a domestic level guy like Zach CHELLI. And that's what Zach is. Zach CHELLI is not ranked in none of the sanctioning bodies. Ali Akhmedov has actually got higher rankings in the sanctioning bodies than LeRone. Yeah. So he'd also be fighting for Akhmedov's rankings. There's a lot at stake here. But in my opinion, I don't think he wanted that fight with Akhmedov because he can talk about he beat the guy who beat Akhmedov, but it's all about styles make fights. And Akhmedov is going to bring the heat to LeRone. He's going to bring the heat. And I'm not sure if he fancied it. Gongora stopped Akhmedov. He stopped him. But at the same time, LeRone likes space to box. Gongora is a good scalp, a very good scalp. He just wasn't fresh enough to box with LeRone. LeRone contradicted himself. He contradicted himself. I'm not going to fight the guy who's already lost to the guy I beat. Instead, I'm going to fight the guy who's a domestic level 168 pounder. What sense does that make? Ali's ranked number 6 with the IBF, number 13 with the WBO. And to rub salt in the wound, he's ranked number 5 with the WBC. LeRone is ranked number 7. The reason he's ranked higher, because he went ahead and fought on the Anthony Joshua bill and beat Gabe Rosado. Now he's ranked higher than LeRone. LeRone, his fight got cancelled with Zach CHELLI, so he didn't get the chance to earn no money this year. Akhmedov could possibly get a title shot next year. Will LeRone be getting one? Matchroom did their job. They did their job. They got him on a big stage against a ranked opponent for big money. Hopefully he recovers from whatever made him pass out and recovers quickly and he can get on with his career. But, you know, like JD, one of my subs, pointed out on Twitter, John Ryder's looking at fighting Canelo right now with that WBO interim title. If LERRONE had took on Akhmadov on the AJ card, a high-profile card, and shined, sky's the limit. He could be in line for a title shot at Canelo. He's got 3 of the straps there, Canelo. He could be in line. But what now? As Ring IQ pointed out, so far Eddie is regularly getting his guys the Canelo bag. Jacobs, Cannon Smith, Saunders, Golovkin, Ryder, LERRONE. You could have been on there, bro. You could have been on that list. Like Andrade. Andrade just had the worst year. Started the year as WBO middleweight champion. He avoided Johnny Beck, let Johnny Beck hijack his title because he wouldn't fight Johnny Beck. I like Andrade, but I have to conclude he was a little shook. And it took the guy from Battersea Wandsworth, way less experienced than Demetrius, to go in there with Johnny Beck. And while he didn't win, Denzel, he proved that Johnny Beck is a good fighter, but he's not as dangerous as whatever Demetrius saw that scared him off. Then he pulled out of the Zach Parker fight, only for the purse bid to resurface again at 168. This time Frank said, nah, I'm not going to put up a big bid. You're not with Matchroom no more. I've got no one to compete with the purse bid. Put in this piece of shit bid. I'm not having to go at Frank. I would have done the same thing. I would have put in the minimum bid. And of course Andrade had to pass up the fight. You know, Frank said to himself, this guy's an awkward fighter. I'm going to pay him how much? 700 grand to come to England and make it awkward for my guy. So they opted for John Ryder. That didn't pan out either. And I'm not going to sit here and say Zach Parker is a bad fighter. But I knew he wasn't that good. I picked Ryder. But I was always asking myself, is Andrade shook to face Zach? Really? And Ryder ended up with a WBO belt in the end. Andrade's frozen out. LERRONE is frozen out. They probably hate Eddie, but they're more frustrated with themselves than anybody. Let's keep it real. You made some horrible, shocking decisions. Both inactive for the year. And no promoter is banging down the door to put their star fighters in with Demetrius and LERRONE. I don't think Demetrius is boring, actually. LERRONE, I don't think he's boring, but he's less action than Demetrius, in all truth. But nevertheless, they're tricky southpaw types. Most trainers and promoters are looking to avoid guys like that. And to make it worse, they turned down perfectly good fights when they was with Matchroom.
No, look at you now.
Let me take myself out of the fighting capacity and say if I was a trainer, I'd expect my fighter to knock someone like Jermaine Franklin out, with all due respect, yeah? With the experience Dylan's got, the power he's got, all the other stuff, I ain't in there to play games. I'm going there to try and knock someone of that caliber out. Listen, up-and-coming fighters, you need to be knocking out everyone on the way up, because by the time you get to the top, it's only going to get tougher. So if you struggle with fighters on the way up, you're going to get smashed when you get to the top, basically. So make sure you're smoking people on the way up.
You see, that's what Anthony Joshua did on the come-up. 20 fights on the bounce, all inside the distance. And then Joseph Parker snapped the knockout streak when AJ became a free belt unified title holder. And obviously not everybody can punch like that. Some guys are going to have to go the harder way around and struggle a little more on their ascension towards titles. But there's no better way to promote yourself than taking them out. AZIM, the Asians are all up in the game right now. He's 7-0, 6 inside the distance. And he destroyed RYLIN CHARLTON, boxer XX Sky. Second round knockout. What was it, 3 knockdowns? AZIM was throwing some big overhand rights, man, and he destroyed him early. Not that Ryan is world class or anything like that, or even serious domestic level. But it was impressive. It was impressive nonetheless. And he's already headlining. Shane McGuigan is talking about fast track. He wants the sanctioning bodies to rank Adam, and he wants to take on the best of the best. Amir Khan is warning Team AZIM against that, saying they need to take their time and not rush. Bakadir Jalalov played Matador to the crude bum rush attempts by Curtis Harper in the third. He sidestepped him, manoeuvred him to the left corner of the ring, threw a left cross, put him on his back. Harper done well to get up, showed bravery. Jalalov, 6'7", weighing at 247, which is good because, you know, he's got the nimble footwork and he's got fast hands. And I don't think it's a necessity for everyone to try and follow a Tyson Fury blueprint and come in at 270 like Tyson and Joyce. 247 is a good weight for Jalolov. Very good weight. I mean, he has a real fast left hand, the backhand, southpaw. In the fourth, he was getting his combinations off and Harper had no answer at all. The left hand put him on his knee and he got back up, but the referee saw no point of letting it continue. And there wasn't no point, it was over at that point there. Jalolov is 12-0 now, fought 3 times this year. Jack Malawai, he took him into the 8th round. Kamil Sokolowski took him into the 5th. Harper took him into the 4th. And after interrupting his career, his pro career, where he debuted in 2018, he went back to the amateurs and won the gold in the Olympics 2021 in China. He had 90 wins as an amateur, 14 losses, and was a successful amateur. Are they going to fast track him? Because he's from Uzbekistan, Central Asia. Fighters from that region of the world or Eastern Europe with an amateur pedigree like him are normally fast tracked, but this is the heavyweight division and you could take a bit longer. But I don't see what he's really going to learn taking on the likes of Curtis Harper or even Kamil Sokolowski. He's way advanced past that right now. And perhaps you don't want to go top 5, top 10 yet, but top 15, yeah. And to be honest, I think he should be fighting ranked contenders next year. I think he should. Like, he's got this reputation as a puncher and he can hit, but he's a really good boxer. I don't think he's got nothing to worry about. He looks just as advanced as anyone else pitching punches at any level in the pros. That fight was on the Carson, California card, hosted by Marv Nation, the newcomers, on the Fight Network. And the main event, Regis Prograce, his record stands at 28-1, 24 knockouts after knocking out Jose Zepeda in a much anticipated clash. Zepeda 35-3 with 27 knockouts. Was knocked out in the 11th round by a very inspired Regis Prograce, who is one of the most mentally toughest fighters in the business right now. Make no mistake about that. Great conditioning, moves around the ring beautifully, good counter puncher, always in range, arrogant, drops his hands, rolls his shoulders, trying to make his opponent's punches miss by fractions and counter, and he looked very good. He looked the business. I mean, this was a dangerous fight. And Zepeda had his moments. But in the breakdown I made, I said he's got to be able to establish a jab. And he couldn't build anything, let alone land a jab consistently. And he couldn't set himself to really get his punches off. You know, the 3-inch reach advantage, it was like, really? What does that mean? Nothing. I haven't seen no CompuBox stats, but from what I was seeing, Prograce had the harder jab, the snappier jab, the jab that set the tempo for the fight. Zepeda, he was cut midway through over the right eye. And I don't want to say he was feeling sorry for himself, but whatever confidence he took into the ring, Regis snatched it away. Zepeda at times poured with his jab out of range, afraid to step in, while Regis was stepping in with his shots. Big left hand by Zepeda in the 10th round. And then he followed up with a few punches and then he just started holding. He just started holding. Maybe that was the last roll of the dice. It was a tough battle. Regis was bleeding from the nose, but Regis generally was in control. Regis walked Zepeda onto a beautiful left hook. Beautiful move. Zepeda didn't see it coming. Zepeda was hurt. It was a very unorthodox left hook he threw. It almost seemed like he was looking away from Zepeda. And Zepeda just didn't see it coming and he followed up, let his hands go and knocked him out. WBC 140-pound champion Regis Prograce. Hopefully he takes on the winner out of Catterall and Josh Taylor. We want to see it. All the smoke at 140. Marv Nation put this on pay-per-view on the fight website for $59.99. The fight went to a purse bid, so Regis and Zepeda get their guarantees. So if it doesn't sell, that's Marv Nation's problem. I'm more worried, not worried, but a talent like Prograce back in the day is Showtime HBO. HBO are out of the game, but his fight being relegated to a streaming app that hasn't blown up, at least not yet, and it may do. The fortunes may change for the Fight Network in 2023, but let's hope to see Regis on a bigger platform. I'm sure we'll see that. He's one of the quote-unquote hardcore boxing fans' favourite fighters from what I hear and see. Definitely one of my favourite fighters.
Mm.